friends. I am so excited to be welcoming you to season 2. So nuts that there's already 2 seasons of this incredible podcast, but here we are. And so before we begin, I want to remind you that you have permission to pause this episode at any point if there's a gem that was dropped that you're like, oh, I want to keep that close, or I really want to make sure that I come back to this. You have permission to pause the episode and just download the episode if you haven't already. Okay. And this way you have these insights in your back pocket whenever you need it. So just wanted to kind of say that really quickly because of some feedback that I received from season 1. So there you have it. All right. Reparenting yourself. It's a buzzy term. It has something like 100,000 or more than 100,000 posts on Instagram, and the tag inner child, which is obviously very much related to this idea of reparenting yourself, has over 1 million posts. 1 million. So it's safe to say that this idea of reparenting yourself and inner child healing is important, right? We're talking about it. We're, being more interested in this idea of giving ourselves what we might have, not received when we were younger. And so let's just start with the basics here, just some definitions so that, we're speaking the same language. And when I refer to this idea of reparenting, it is the process of healing and nurturing your inner child, meaning that now, as an adult, you are addressing unprocessed or under-processed childhood wounds or traumas and really allowing yourself to create a healthier emotional foundation for yourself. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can always set yourself up for and with a really great, nourishing emotional foundation. Okay. And as you probably already know, it's really easy to carry patterns and traumas from our early years into adulthood, especially if they haven't been processed or they haven't been processed enough. And, that creates issues because it impacts our relationships, it impacts our careers, it impacts our business, our self-esteem, and really our overall well-being. So, this work is really special because it allows us to give ourselves the care, the love, the support, and, all that yumminess that for whatever reason we might have not received in the past. I honestly think and am kind of often saying that reparenting yourself is the highest form of self-love, right? As an adult, to be able to do that, just beautiful. So you might be wondering, okay, but like, how does this play into my role as an entrepreneur? How can my business really support me in this idea of reparenting yourself? And you know what I say, the person is professional, the professional is personal. If you want to grow, start a business, literally. If you want to grow personally, go off and start a business, because building and running a business is a profound journey of self-discovery and personal growth. If those two things are not don't happen or not happening in your entrepreneurial endeavors, I have questions. I have questions. So because, our businesses are a vehicle for these things, they are such an incredible and powerful tool for this personal reparenting work. And so, you may be wondering, well, why might someone even need to reparent themselves, right? Like if we get a little bit deeper here, it's typically because they didn't receive the parenting that they needed, or the parenting that they did receive was insufficient. Being under-parented or under-mothered is very real. And, I would say that the majority of us probably received mothering or parenting that was insufficient, not because this is a commentary on them, but just because of the world that we live in and, because of all of the pressures and all of the things that pull at parents day to day. So there's no shame in this. If you feel like your parenting, the parenting that you received or the mothering that you received was insufficient, it's not a bad thing, right? Like your parents probably did the best that they could with what they had. So this is 100% okay and quite common. And so, when you don't receive sufficient parenting or mothering, right, we end up struggling with these ideas that I kind of spoke about before: self trust, self worth, right? It's this feeling of not being enough. Am I worthy? All of the things that I know you have struggled at one point or another, or maybe you're struggling with it right now. And if we get even under the hood a little bit more, there are three essential elements to mothering or parenting, according to licensed professional counselor Kelly McDaniel, who wrote an incredible book called Mother Hunger. Highly, highly recommend. And when we need to do reparenting work, it's usually because we didn't receive one or more of these elements sufficiently. And the three elements are nurturance, protection, and guidance. And I want to quickly go through them so that, we're both kind of speaking the same language here. Nurturance is the emotional and physical care and nourishment that we all need for as long as we live, really. But especially as children, our mothers are obviously our first source of nurturance. And from this, we learn whether or not we matter, and we learn kind of start gauging how love feels. So, safe to say that nurturance is pretty damn important. Then there's protection. And protection is the idea of keeping you safe from harm and injury. And so this is really important because when we know that we have someone who can serve as a buffer, right, to protect us from threats, harm, danger, we are less likely to develop fear and anxiety later on. Right. And then there's guidance. It's this idea that, you have someone to look to for cues for how the world works, how you ought to behave, what you can go towards, what you maybe should not be going towards. Right. And so I want to walk you through ways that your business can help you give yourself protection and nurturance in particular, so that you can be the mother to yourself that you need, and you can feel whole, and you can feel complete, right? And really give yourself what you need in order to not only be, but also do well in the world. Because I know that chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you're in the business of helping others and impacting others and leaving things better than you found it. Okay. And so protection. It's the first one I'll cover. And, as an entrepreneur, you probably are going to understand this pretty easily because, most entrepreneurs create their business out of protection, meaning that you are using your business, you're using entrepreneurship as a way, as a vehicle to not experience what you might have experienced in the past. So that can look like building a business and going into entrepreneurship to protect yourself from poverty, protect yourself from homelessness, for example, if that was something that you experienced, protect yourself from uncertainty, from chaos or abuse. And this could have been abuse that you experienced at home or in another place of employment. And so, as the leader of your business, as the one in the driver's seat, you call the shots. Outside of, the regular insecurities of living in this like very unpredictable world, you typically aren't blindsided, right, in your business because you're at the helm. You hold the vision. And so in this way, your business can and does help you give yourself the protection that you might have not received when you were younger from your parents or caregivers. I've spoken at length at how much becoming an entrepreneur and building a business that really worked for me helped me develop like a completely different lifestyle that has given me what feels like a completely different and new nervous system. That's major, right? If I think about, where I come from, but also where my mother and my grandmother comes from, like my nervous system was on high drive. That's just the way that it was built, right? Given what my ancestors, given what my mom and my grandmother have been through. So the fact that being an entrepreneur and building a business that really allows me to give myself what I need has allowed me to rewire my nervous system. You kidding me? That shit is major. Absolutely major. So that's protection. And then there's nurturance. We know that entrepreneurship has no shortage of challenges and setbacks. And as its leader, the brunt of solving those falls on you. As such, we have ample, and I do mean ample, opportunity to notice and be with how we speak to ourselves when we make a mistake or when things don't go as planned. Ample opportunity, right? Something always happens in our businesses. So that means that your business can give you this opportunity to really reflect on and see and build awareness around, are you speaking kindly to yourself, or are you tag teaming with your inner critic and being mean to yourself? Are you comforting yourself, or perhaps are you resourcing yourself with whatever it is that you need to feel comforted when things get tough, right? Because we all know that they will. It's kind of par for the course. Depending on how you set up your business, it can really allow you to respond to your needs, which is such an important part of nurturance, as I shared before. It's something that we learn from our mothers typically early on. The ways in which she responds to our needs when we cry, right? Because we're hungry or because we're hurt or whatever, that communicates a lot of things for us and is part of nurturance. Well, now in your business, you have ample opportunity to give that to yourself. Again, because things are always going to happen in the business. And so it's really about building a business that can give you the capacity you need to be able to respond to your needs, whatever they may be. That is major, major, major work. And again, as I mentioned before, I think that most entrepreneurs are good with the protection piece. It's this nurturance piece that, in my experience, both personally, but also as a practitioner, really kind of trips entrepreneurs up because it requires you to pause. It requires you to build in times of slowness in an otherwise incredibly fast-paced environment, which that's just kind of how entrepreneurship is. And oftentimes entrepreneurs, really struggle with pausing, with stopping, with really kind of reflecting. And I can't underscore how important that work is, because the personal is professional and the professional is personal. So when you're able to provide yourself with protection and nurturance, you end up rebuilding that self-trust that maybe took a hit when you were younger, right? You start learning to trust yourself, not just that you can make X amount of dollars, but that you can really be there for yourself when things go wrong, because they will, right? That means that you can then learn how to provide yourself the mothering that, for whatever reason, you couldn't receive when you were younger. Folks, this is generation shifting work. Okay. To wrap up here, I want to remind you that if your entrepreneurial journey brings up some personal material, you're not doing anything wrong. There isn't anything wrong with you. It's simply what happens, and why I'm so excited about this podcast, and I'm so excited about talking about this, because we just don't talk about this enough. Entrepreneurship has the most fascinating way of highlighting all of your stuff, highlighting your inner world, highlighting how you think, highlighting your limiting beliefs, highlighting all the made up constraints you place on yourself. And it's so important that we are building these guardrails in our business building journey, because it's such valuable insight, not only for the legacies that we want to create, but also for our own personal healing. Reparenting work is an ongoing, highlight here, ongoing sacred process with a lot of twists and turns, a lot of enlightenment, a lot of emotions, a lot of things. And it's going to look different for everyone, but it is an incredible process that I really invite you all to really, really reflect on. If you're on that journey, I hope that you have a community, right? Whether that is one person or 10, to support you through that. Again, this is deep generation shifting work. And if it feels hard, it's because it is hard, right? It doesn't mean that you're wrong or that you've taken a wrong turn or that you're doing something that's bad. It just means that you're doing something really, really courageous. All right, friends, that's all for now. I'll see you next week.